The sun had barely risen over the jagged violet-hued mountains of Thalara when Princess Lysera was brought from the Crystal Palace to the edge of the human encampment. Her slender frame trembled with both fear and indignation. She had been raised to command, to inspire, and to wield authority over her people. Yet here she was, handed like a gift to a human soldier she did not know. The elders of her world had declared that offering her to the humans might end the long war that had drained the Valari civilization of resources and courage. But no one had explained the customs of humans in a way that would make her feel safe. Legends spoke of humans as predators, creatures who devoured their enemies to gain strength. In her youth, Lysera had been told stories of how humans, victorious in battle, would roast the flesh of their captives over open fires. Though she had learned these tales were exaggerated, the fear they had planted in her heart had not entirely faded. As the guards led her closer to the encampment, she clutched the folds of her silken robe, her crystalline blue eyes wide with terror. At the entrance of the human camp stood Sergeant Daniel Reeve. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with battle-worn features and a calm, steady presence. His uniform bore the marks of countless skirmishes, yet he seemed different from the ruthless warriors Lysera had been warned about. When their eyes met, she flinched instinctively, stepping back. Daniel's expression softened. He raised his hand slightly, signaling he meant no harm. "Princess Lysera," he said in a measured voice, "you're safe." "I am Sergeant Daniel Reeve." Lysera's heart raced and she could not speak. The words of her elders echoed in her mind. Never trust a human, never let them near you, and always prepare for the worst. She suspected this safety might be a deception, a polite prelude to being consumed. Every gesture Daniel made seemed to her like a test, and she was determined not to fail it. Daniel, sensing her tension, offered a small smile and gestured toward a nearby tent. "We have food and shelter here. You must be tired." Lysera's gaze flickered to the fire burning inside the tent. Her instincts screamed at her. Fire meant cooking. Cooking meant meat. And humans were supposed to eat meat. She assumed she was next. Her legs moved before she could think, retreating several steps away from the fire. I do not require your hospitality," she stammered, her voice trembling. Daniel raised an eyebrow, not offended, only curious. He understood that she had grown up in a world at war with his species. Misunderstandings were natural, especially under such circumstances. "That's fine," he said calmly. "But you cannot stay outside all day. The terrain is dangerous and there are predators in these forests. I cannot allow you to be hurt." Lysera's eyes widened. Predators. She knew they meant dangerous animals, yet her mind conjured images of humans using her as prey. Her pulse quickened and she pulled her robe tighter around her shoulders. I can survive," she whispered. Daniel took a step back, giving her space. "I'll make a path for you. Walk slowly. I will not harm you." Every step she took felt like a test of courage. The path to the tent was lined with small fires and human guards, all watching, but none appeared hostile. Daniel guided her gently, his hand hovering near hers without touching. She remained rigid, expecting an ambush, yet none came. Each cautious step she took was an exercise in trust, something she had never practiced with humans. When they reached the tent, Daniel gestured inside. "This is your space for now. You can rest. There are blankets and rations. Eat if you are hungry." Lysera's instincts rebelled. Rations meant food for her, or perhaps for Daniel, and she feared he might try to share something unpleasant. She looked at the bundles and considered fleeing, but as she glanced outside, the forest stretched endlessly, filled with unseen dangers. Perhaps staying was safer than risking the unknown wilderness. Reluctantly, she stepped inside, her senses on high alert. Inside the tent, Daniel sat down on a stool, keeping his distance. "I won't touch anything that belongs to you. You're free to move, to rest, or to eat. I just ask you to remain safe." Lysera's heart pounded. The words were meant to calm, but she interpreted them as polite manipulation. She remained standing, her hands clasped in front of her. Every sound, the rustling of the canvas, the distant calls of birds, felt amplified. Was it possible to survive near a human without being eaten? She could not tell. Hours passed. Daniel busied himself outside, repairing weapons and organizing supplies. Lysera observed him quietly, her curiosity battling her fear. He worked carefully, methodically, never once glancing at her with hunger or malice. She noticed the way he moved, How he treated every object with respect, how he paused now and then to check the environment for danger. Humans, she began to realize, were not all the monsters of Valari legend. Her first real moment of terror came when a wild animal, a snarling, multi-legged beast native to Thalara, approached the camp. Lysira froze, convinced her end had come. The creature lunged at her and she screamed, backing into the corner of the tent. Daniel reacted instantly. Without hesitation, he grabbed a nearby rod and threw himself between Lysira and the creature. With a precision born of years on the battlefield, he fought the beast, keeping Lysira safe behind him. The fight was brief but violent. By the time it ended, the beast lay unconscious and Daniel's arms bore several scratches, though he remained standing. Lysira's hands shook. She stared at him in disbelief. He had risked himself not to consume her but to protect her. Her mind reeled. Could humans truly act without intending harm? You protected me, she whispered, barely audible. Daniel wiped the blood from his arms and nodded. I told you you're safe here. You're not food. Lysira's voice trembled, her pride clashing with her fear. I do not understand. Why? Because it is not in my nature to harm those who do not deserve it, he replied. His tone was firm but gentle. You are a guest and I will treat you as such. Her fear did not vanish, but a seed of curiosity took root. Perhaps the legends were incomplete. Perhaps humans were capable of honor, courage, and compassion. She studied him more closely, noticing the faint scars on his arms and the steady way he moved, as though every motion had a purpose. The following day, Lysira attempted to communicate, asking questions in her hesitant speech. She inquired about his people, about the battles, and about the customs of humans. Daniel answered patiently, explaining the exaggerations of war tales and the diversity of his species. Some humans did hunt, some ate meat, some celebrated victories loudly, but none, he assured her, treated prisoners as prey in the way her legends suggested. Even as she listened, Lysira remained cautious. She would not allow herself to be lulled into comfort too quickly. Her instincts, shaped by centuries of caution, warned her against trust. Yet she could not deny that Daniel's actions, protecting her, ensuring her safety, giving her food without coercion, were unlike anything she had imagined. Over the next few days, small moments of understanding began to build a fragile bridge. Daniel showed her how to prepare simple rations, how to check the perimeter for threats, and how to remain calm in the face of danger. Lysira observed quietly, learning not only about humans but also about the possibility of cooperation between species that had once been enemies. One night, as they sat near a fire, Lysira shivered from the cold. Daniel removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders without a word. She stiffened, unsure whether to accept the gesture, but the warmth was undeniable. Her fear, though still present, began to mingle with a sense of cautious trust. It was then that danger struck again. A band of rogue Valari, extremists who rejected the surrender, infiltrated the human camp. They believed Daniel had kidnapped the princess and intended to harm her. Lysira, witnessing the confrontation, realized the depth of her own uncertainty. The humans had promised peace, yet the extremists saw only betrayal. Daniel stood calmly, his weapon lowered, ready to protect, yet not to strike unnecessarily. Lysira's instincts screamed, but she acted, stepping forward. She spread her arms and spoke loudly, her voice steady. This human did not harm me. He protected me when even my own people would not. He is not my enemy. The extremist hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Lysira's words carried authority. She was their princess, and her declaration could not be ignored. Daniel glanced at her, a mixture of relief and pride in his eyes. He realized that trust once earned could transcend fear and legend. By the end of the confrontation, the attackers retreated, leaving Lysira and Daniel alone by the fire. She sank to her knees, exhausted from the adrenaline and the emotional turmoil. Daniel sat beside her, offering quiet support without intrusion. Lysira's thoughts swirled. The legends of humans had been only half the truth. They were not monsters in the way her people had feared. They were capable of courage, empathy, and protection. Perhaps she considered this human soldier was not the enemy she had imagined, but something entirely different, someone she could learn to trust. As the night deepened and the stars shimmered over Thalara, Lysira looked at Daniel. For the first time, she did not see a potential predator. She saw a human, flawed but honorable, capable of acts of bravery and kindness. Her fear had not vanished, but it had softened, replaced with curiosity and the faintest spark of hope. "Sergeant Reeve," she whispered, "if I am not your meal, then what am I?" Daniel smiled gently, his eyes. The morning sun cast long golden streaks across the forest floor, illuminating the path that Lysera and Daniel had begun to traverse together. The events of the previous night had left both of them thoughtful, their bond strengthened by the shared dangers they had faced. Lysera no longer approached Daniel with trembling fear, though a cautious respect remained, a reminder of centuries of cultural distrust between humans and Velari. Daniel, for his part, treated her with patient care, understanding the weight of her heritage and the burdens of being a princess in a war-torn world. They moved through the forest, Daniel leading with careful steps, checking for any signs of predators or hidden dangers. Lysera followed, her senses alert but less tense than before. The wilderness of Thalara was both beautiful and dangerous. Strange, luminescent plants swayed in the gentle wind, casting flickering lights on the ground. Small creatures with crystalline wings darted between the trees, curious but wary. Every now and then, Lysera paused to study them, marveling at the delicate beauty of her own world through fresh eyes no longer clouded by fear of humans. "Why are you not afraid?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. Her voice carried the faint accent of Velari nobility, melodic and sharp at the edges. She had been asking herself that question for days, unable to reconcile the legends with the man walking beside her. Daniel glanced at her, his expression calm. "Afraid of what? Of me?" He smiled lightly. "I've seen humans and aliens alike do terrible things. I've also seen them do incredible things. I choose to act with honor. Protecting someone is not weakness, it's responsibility." Lysera considered his words carefully. Responsibility. The concept was familiar to her, yet she had never associated it with a human. Most humans, in her experience and according to the tales she had grown up with, were unpredictable, guided by instinct and hunger. Yet here was Daniel acting with purpose and care. Slowly, the seed of trust planted the night before began to grow. As they walked, Daniel offered her small pieces of information about human life, about communities, customs, and the importance of cooperation. Lysera listened intently, comparing the explanations to the exaggerated legends she had been taught. She realized how much fear had shaped her perception of humanity. The man beside her, with his calm demeanor and protective nature, was evidence that humans were far more complex than her stories had ever conveyed. The forest, however, was not completely safe. Around midday, the distant sound of running footsteps and frantic shouts reached their ears. Lysera's eyes widened and she instinctively moved closer to Daniel. He raised a hand, signaling her to stay calm. A group of rogue Velari extremists emerged from the underbrush, their expressions filled with anger and suspicion. They had refused to accept the surrender agreement and believed Daniel had abducted the princess. Their weapons were drawn, but they paused when Lysera stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of authority. "This human has done me no harm," she said, her voice ringing clear through the trees. "He protected me when my own people would have left me to danger. You will not harm him." The extremists hesitated, their faces betraying confusion. Princess Lysera, a figure of high authority, was defending the very being they had been told to despise. Her declaration created a fragile pause in the tension. Daniel remained calm, lowering his weapon but ready to act if needed. His trust in Lysera was absolute. He knew her words carried weight, enough to sway even the most obstinate hearts. After a tense moment, the extremists slowly backed away, muttering among themselves. The forest returned to quiet, and Daniel turned to Lysera, admiration in his eyes. "You spoke with courage," he said. "Most would have hidden behind me, but you faced them yourself." Lysera felt a strange warmth at his praise. Her pride, once overshadowed by fear, now mingled with something new. Respect for the human who had shown her the meaning of trust. I could not remain silent," she admitted softly. "I have seen what you are capable of. I know you protect those who need it. That is not the way of most humans, but it is your way," Daniel nodded, smiling. "And it can be our way if you allow it. We can face dangers together." In the days that followed, Lysera began to learn more than just about humans. She observed how Daniel approached every task with careful thought, how he prioritized life over destruction, and how he treated even the smallest creatures in the forest with respect. He taught her to prepare simple rations, how to recognize edible plants, and how to create safe spaces in the wilderness. Each lesson was more than survival. It was a demonstration of empathy, patience, and cooperation. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and cast long shadows across the forest, Lysera asked, "Why do you help me so willingly? You have no obligation to protect me beyond the orders you were given." Daniel paused, considering her question. Orders can tell you what to do, but they cannot tell you how to act with honor. I help because it is the right thing. Protecting someone weaker than you or someone in need does not make you lesser. It makes you stronger. Lysera's eyes softened. Strength and honor were values she had always been taught to admire. Seeing them live so clearly in a human challenged everything she thought she knew about her species' enemies. For the first time, she felt that humans might not be the monsters of Valari legend, but allies, capable of courage and compassion equal to her own people. Night fell, and the two sat by a small fire they had built together. The forest around them shimmered with strange bioluminescent plants casting a gentle glow. Lysera, wrapped in the jacket Daniel had given her, finally allowed herself to relax. The fire, once a symbol of fear, now offered warmth and safety. "Do you ever feel afraid?" she asked quietly. "Of course," Daniel replied without hesitation. "Every day. Fear is natural, but what matters is how you act despite it." Lysera considered this. For so long, fear had guided her actions, dictating how she moved, how she spoke, and how she thought. Now she realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act with integrity despite it. She looked at Daniel, her mind racing with understanding and newfound admiration. The following morning, the forest presented new challenges. Daniel and Lysera had to cross a river teeming with swift currents and hidden rocks. Lysera hesitated at the edge, her instincts warning her of potential danger. Daniel held out his hand, steady and reassuring. "I will be here. We will cross together." Trusting him, Lysera grasped his hand. They moved carefully, step by step, navigating the water without incident. Lysera could feel her confidence growing, bolstered by Daniel's steady presence. The journey through the wilderness became a lesson not only in survival but in partnership. As they traveled, Lysera began to share stories of her childhood, her training as a princess, and the legends she had believed. Daniel listened with genuine interest, asking questions and expressing admiration for her knowledge and courage. In return, he shared stories of human life, their customs, and their philosophy of responsibility toward others. Through these exchanges, a bridge of understanding was built, one grounded in shared experiences and mutual respect rather than fear and suspicion. Days later, the duo reached a ridge overlooking a valley, where the remnants of the Valari military forces were attempting to regroup. Scouts reported that the extremists who had ambushed them were planning another attack, this time targeting both Daniel and Lysera to reclaim the princess. Lysera's eyes hardened as she observed the preparations below. For the first time, she did not feel paralyzed by fear. Instead, she felt a sense of resolve. "We must act," she said firmly. "If they come for me, they will put us both in danger." "We cannot wait for them to strike," Daniel nodded. "Agreed, but we will not fight recklessly. We will use strategy, and we will protect those who cannot protect themselves." Together they devised a plan. Using their knowledge of the terrain, Daniel would create defensive positions while Lysera coordinated signals and warnings to the surrounding forces. They moved like a synchronized team, each action reinforcing the other. For Lysera, this was a revelation. She had always believed that humans relied solely on brute force. Yet here was Daniel, demonstrating intelligence, patience, and leadership. The ambush came at dusk. Shadows moved swiftly across the valley as the extremists attempted to encircle them. Daniel positioned themselves in narrow paths where the attackers' numbers mattered little. Lysera, standing beside him, relayed commands and observations, her voice steady and commanding. The attackers were caught off guard. Daniel's defensive maneuvers and Lysera's coordination created confusion among the Valari extremists. Step by step, they were driven back, retreating in disorder. Lysera watched in awe as Daniel anticipated their movements, striking decisively when necessary, yet always avoiding unnecessary harm. When the skirmish ended, the valley was quiet except for the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of wildlife. Lysera turned to Daniel, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "I see now," she said softly. "Humans are not what I was told. Your people are capable of courage, honor, and compassion. Daniel smiled. And you, Lysera, have shown that understanding is stronger than fear. Today we fought together and we protected each other. That is what matters. As night fell over the valley, they sat once more by their fire. Lysera no longer shivered from fear but from the cool breeze.